Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here. We got a great show lined up for you today. We get deep in the weeds with WQUD 1077 on the Charlie Kirk assassination, Antifa becoming a terrorist organization, Epstein, and so much more. Buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness.
Deep in the weeds with Jason Bermas. That's right, we are going deep in the weeds with Jason Bermas right here on 80 in the morning, brought to you by River City's Reader. Now, we missed him last week. I'm pretty sure it was an FBI conspiracy to get him away from talking to us, but he was out in D.C. for a 9/11 tribute. He is back. He is Jason Bermas. Check out his documentary films. Of course, Loose Change, a big one. We've all heard or probably seen that one. And then Making Sense of the Madness. Check him out on YouTube. He's got a show every single day. Jason, how's it going, man?
It is going well. How are you today, sir?
I am phenomenal. It's Friday. I'm an hour away from weekend. I got some stuff to do. But, for the most part, life is good, Jason Bermas.
Well, that is good to hear. And, I guess I'll just get rolling here. I was listening earlier, and you were talking about Jimmy Kimmel, right? And
yeah, I was. The captain of smugness.
The captain of smugness, according to you. And look, I'm not a Kimmel fan. I'm not necessarily a hater. I still want to revel back into the glory days of Comedy Central and The Man Show. But at the same time, even before this whole whether or not he got canceled, and I do want to get into these issues of people getting fired for their beliefs, some of their grotesque beliefs. There's a lot to really get into there, because I don't think you revel in someone else's misery. I think that's kind of a negative thing. But Kimmel and all these other guys aren't making money. Just like Colbert, this isn't necessarily because he said something extremely insensitive. Don't get me wrong. You did bring up the fact that we all have bosses, and when they tell you to do something, sometimes you listen. But at the same time, if you've been paying attention to the ether, Colbert just wasn't economically viable anymore. And who knows, maybe Fallon is not economically viable anymore. I think that he leans a little less into the political aspect, but people are spending their late evenings doing other things. They have other things on in the background that are accessible 24 hours a day. And quite frankly, this type of platform is not as much in the cultural zeitgeist and does not have the significance it once did. And I think that shift is there. That being said, you look at actual, in my opinion, cancel culture when it was against the almighty dollar. You look at somebody like Roseanne all those years ago, where everything was so politically sensitive, even pre-COVID, where you could have the top TV show, you could be garnering more money, and this whole equity movement moved into place with your, social conscience and credit, and people were getting canceled that way. I like to think that we want to let the market speak for itself, but there are so many obstacles to that. Now, let's talk about, the reason that it seems to have happened. What Kimmel said was ridiculous and obviously political. And, I don't know about the two comments. I do know about the one where he was trying to frame the alleged shooter of the event as someone who was like a MAGA Republican. I have really stayed away. In fact, the last time that I was on air, Aaron, other than hosting that event on the 11th, was about 20 minutes after Kirk had been shot and still not pronounced. Nobody knew whether he was alive or dead, but from what I had heard from my brother, he was dead. There was no doubt about it. And, essentially my brother called me because one of the individuals that I was going to be introducing, and you never know how big these things are going to be, and, I wasn't sure whether it was outdoors, indoors, anything, was Tucker Carlson. After the event, Tucker Carlson not only canceled, but he also did not put out his 9/11 documentary. That's been postponed, I think, into middle of next week. He's going to release it. But I went live, and I was pretty raw and emotional. When my brother told me what had happened, I got physically ill. I almost threw up. This kid was 31 years old. And the thing is,
two young ones.
Look, Charlie actually was supposed to be on my show. He canceled. That was about a year and a half ago. But the thing that I wanted to talk to him about, I mean, we certainly had our differences, but one of the things that I felt that he was getting right, and something that nobody else on his level was talking to, especially to the youth, was that this transgender movement is really about transhumanism. And, he was articulate in short spurts. I don't know if he had all the information, so I was looking forward to that conversation. And what really struck me about the whole thing, almost in hindsight, first of all, something that's not being talked about enough via this assassination is he's literally being asked about gun violence, trans shootings, and about to answer that question when he gets capped. I just want to, put that out there for the narrative.
Creepily ironic.
If ironic. I mean, I don't know exactly. Again, I'm reserving judgment on everything. I'll certainly get there. But immediately, as I started discussing these things, you had people in there, with the laughing emojis. Here's to you catching a bullet like Charlie Bermas. And I just totally disgusted. But I also thought back to about 20 years ago. Charlie had hit that peak of the zeitgeist where he was being parodied on South Park. And by the way, if you disagree with somebody and, you want to take them on, satire is a great way to do it. I in no way right here are implying that South Park did anything wrong. I'm sure that, in retrospect, they don't feel the best. This is kind of an unprecedented incident. But 20 years ago when they made fun of, myself and Dylan Avery after our Popular Mechanics debate with the Hardley Boys episode, The Mystery of the Urinal Deuce, I wonder how many people would have cheered if we had got shot, and how many people would cheer today. And
You've been parried down on South Park.
Yeah, it's in the 10th season. I
didn't know that about you.
Isn't that something?
That's fascinating. You guys, so that lets people know kind of where you're sitting in terms of, you know all the people, you've been doing all these things for decades, and no, I didn't know that about you, man. That's brand new.
So right on the way up to that, actually after the 5th anniversary of 9/11, basically on the 5th anniversary of 9/11, we were down in New York City, and again, this is ironic because Charlie Kirk was basically parodied as a quote-unquote master debater. And the way that they parodied us was from a debate that I did with Popular Mechanics on the 5th anniversary via Amy Goodman's show in New York City. It was against James Meggs and David Dunbar. And in the DVD extras, you can hear them talking about our debate and basically how I was shouting them down and I was incoherent. So they parodied us as the Hardy Boys, only we were the Hardly Boys. And when we were looking, yes, and when we were looking for clues, let's just say it was a little homoerotic, Aaron. And
okay,
yes,
they do a lot of that. They do a lot of that.
They do a lot of that. But at the same time, I remember watching that, and Kirk was a good sport about it. He did it easily. He was like, "This is a great episode. It's funny." And I remember it was a bit of a gut punch because they kind of lead up to the whole gag of how, the government's just incompetent and they want us to believe in conspiracies and all these things. And obviously it's a goof. But at the same time, we didn't hate South Park after that. We still watched South Park. I still loved it. And that's what you do. You know what I mean? If you want your cultural sway, you be creative with it. And Kirk was out there talking to people, man. He would talk to anybody. That is something you should highly respect somebody for. He wasn't calling for violence. Yeah. You didn't have to agree with him, and he would actually speak with you. So almost immediately, and I really tried not to watch the video. In fact, enough of it, like even before he gets shot, was out there where it was already running through my mind. It was unavoidable. I've seen it within the last 48 hours. And there is a lot of, I'm just going to say, real disinfo surrounding this one, kind of on all sides. I tend to think right now there's a good chance that with the local law enforcement that was involved in picking this Tyler Robinson up and how all that occurred, that could absolutely be the scenario. I still think there are absolutely questions, and there's probably at least another 20 videos out there somewhere that perhaps have not been uploaded, and certainly need to be looked at to ensure that that is the case. But there's some really grotesque stuff out there, in my opinion, as there always is after this, to kind of muddy the waters. People saying that, the whole thing was a hoax, or Charlie's on an island with Epstein and everything's fake in the world.
Oh, boy.
You have no, it even gets even worse than that. And I'm going to tell you what, I've seen death before, luckily not up close. And I mean, there's a reason my brother called me freaking out saying there's no way he made it. He died. It's one of the hardest things to watch. But it's real violence. And if you want to see what real violence, not words are violence, because words aren't violence, okay? In fact, we should be, in this moment, doubling and tripling down. The most grotesque of speech is allowed, okay? Then that's why all these people who I may think are disgusting and disturbing, reveling in this guy's death, they get to speak. Every damn one of us gets to speak. And, in that evening, after I had attended the first part of the 9/11 event on the eve of, I went on one of those large Mario Nawful spaces. And there were already people that were calling for censorship there. And I had warned, I said, listen, the last thing this guy would have wanted is for his death to be used to curb the First and Second Amendment. And now you're going to have conservatives calling for it. And you got that lunatic Bondi over there now talking about hate speech laws. We don't need hate speech laws, okay? I hate to tell everybody, and people might not want to listen to this, but it's the truth. We get to have actual Nazis in this country. And I'm not talking about the ones that they point to that everybody's a white supremacist. I'm talking about the hardcore, would get into Vermont if they could, would dance around in regalia that they bought at some antique show, okay? They get to exist here. It's in the Constitution and Bill of Rights that everybody gets to speak. And I would argue that up until the moment that somebody else's speech is literally about to physically impede on your person and property, your Fourth Amendment. In other words, you've got an authoritarian within the police sphere or the political sphere that's about to order troops or order this person or that person to do harm to you. You defend their right to speak. That's it. You got to be a free speech absolutist, especially in these moments when you see what's happening in, first world European countries where people are going to prison for posting on the internet. Okay? That is where this leads. It actually leads to a worse place where eventually they just shut off your money, or if you do the way wrong thing, they just drone you from 30,000 feet, maybe higher at this point. We really don't know, Aaron. And a lot of people are applauding it. If you think this ends with people saying something gross about Charlie Kirk, right? Or you think this ends with saying something, that's outside of the political sphere, it never does. It's all relative to what the narrative of the day is. And, that really kind of also brings me into, this president making Antifa a quote unquote terrorist organization. That does not and will never stop the core issue of prosecutors and the Justice Department of a region refusing, therefore encouraging crime, refusing to prosecute and then therefore encouraging crime. We have laws on the books, right? And I remember, Aaron, when a bunch of leftists tore down the Albert Pike statue in D.C. While I was in D.C., I actually went to the George Washington Masonic Memorial. Pike has a little spot there. I'd actually asked the guy about the statue because they're talking about putting it back up. I'm not a Pike fan. If anybody wants to historically look into Albert Pike, maybe you'll figure out why. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think that the people that tore down his statue are terrorists and therefore have no due process. They have no rights. No. They committed a crime. They destroyed property, which wasn't theirs. That crime is on the books. Let's arrest them. Because again, if we're going to call them terrorists, they're going to get arrested anyway, and they're just not going to have any rights. It's not like there's a different process. Let's give them the appropriate punishment, and then let's punish them. And that's the accountability we need. When we take the rights away from American citizens, we only make things more dangerous for everybody. And in these volatile political moments, unfortunately, we're rife to do so because so many people aren't thinking correctly. And that was a traumatic video to watch. Let there be no mistake about it. Yes.
No, it definitely is. We are deep in the weeds with Jason Bermas here, brought to you by River Cities Reader. And just a side note, Albert Pike, if people don't know, was a Confederate States Army general, but he was also an author, poet, and wrote some books, a lot of them about Freemasons, Masonry, the magnum opus, or the great work, the Book of Words, Morals and Dogma. This is kind of just to give you an idea, kind of the sphere he was in, just as the reference there. As you were talking, you're talking about an event like this happens, and then a lot of times we see deterioration of freedoms, or we kind of start moving in the wrong direction for the future generations because we're going to start losing some of the things that make America great. And that is kind of what happened on 9/11. I mean, you talk a lot about how they used that event to basically turn around so many things in terms of national security, and I mean, obviously we know how airports work now. A lot changed. And they use that situation to make those changes, and we gotta be aware of how good we really have it here.
Well, when we look at 9/11, especially this year, let's talk about the two different worlds that we could have been living in just a little bit now over a week and a half ago. So Charlie Kirk doesn't get shot on September 10th. Tucker Carlson doesn't cancel on this 9/11 event where Ron Johnson, a current senator, spoke. And anybody can watch this over at the Redacted YouTube channel, by the way, where Dennis Kucinich, former congressman and presidential candidate, spoke. Kurt Weldon. They also brought former Senator Dana Rohrabacher with them. Rohrabacher was one of the guys that literally was championing the Iraq invasion prior, saying that they were going to rain flowers at our feet after we toppled Saddam. Okay, imagine a world where Tucker Carlson comes on, actually speaks, then puts that out to the world, and his documentary film, which his good buddy Charlie Kirk actually also puts out on social media. Tucker had already gone on Piers Morgan earlier in the week and discussed the Israeli aspect and the foreign intelligence surveillance network that was being picked up before 9/11, was caught surveilling the attacks of 9/11, arrested after the fact, and then sent back to Israel with no charges. That's a different world that we lived in, because we really didn't even have a 9/11 anniversary this year, let alone any kind of attention. And, Tucker putting out
Because
that...
of what happened.
I mean, what else was anybody talking about? How could you? I still can't close my eyes when I'm going to sleep and not think of this event. I mean, that's when you're this close to the arena, it's very hard to get away from. And I think to myself, I'm 46. I think about when I was just 31. I'd only been in the game, like at least. I'd been talking and thinking about the stuff. We put out, the second edition Loose Change in 2005 when I was 26. I'd only been in the game for like 5 years. And, I'm still a child at heart, Aaron. You've actually, you've spent some time personally with me. Yeah, I got the gift of gab, and I'll talk about these things. But there are certain, I like to enjoy myself. I think, I'm trying to hit a concert tonight. There's plenty of stuff going on in the Quad Cities, which I love. I'm a very positive guy. D.C., to its credit, with all of its problems, I'm never in love with staying there. I'll give Donnie T credit. It is the cleanest I've ever seen D.C. in my lifetime. And I've been going probably since I was 12 years old. And the last time I was there was two years ago or so, where it was really in bad shape. Whatever they did, a lot of people were complaining about the National Guard. I didn't see one National Guard person left there, and I was all over the city. Like I said, I drove in and out of Alexandria. No military guys whatsoever. Cleanest I've ever seen Washington, D.C. in my life. Take that for what you will, folks. So you got to take the good with the bad, right? But you've got to be able to call out the bad. Like, the idea that we're in Venezuelan waters right now, just drone bombing whatever supposed cocaine boat we say is ludicrous. That's only going to get us into more trouble. In fact,
Agreed.
and folks, just wait on it. Eventually, there's going to be a strike inside Venezuela to set that thing off. One of the reasons I backed this guy was I didn't want any new wars. Okay, and I'm sick of this this cavalier military action. At the same time, there's a lot of people who are questioning the events of Charlie Kirk. The Israel thing is so in the ether right now, not only because of Epstein, that
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up.
well, it's so in the ether that Netanyahu himself was asked about it by Greta Van Stussen, who of course poo-poos it right away, right? Before I even get into that angle, let me just talk about this Tyler Robinson character for a moment. What evidence do we really have right now? Okay, at least that's being provided to us.
We've got videos of him jumping back down off the road.
We've got videos. Hold on, Aaron.
Like a guy in blacks up there.
Aaron, we got videos of somebody jumping up and down. Yeah, somebody. And we've got a couple of stills from whatever surveillance that they have that they're showing us with somebody with a hat and glasses. Almost immediately, people are posting like AI images, which we don't want, right? We want all the source material that's real. Then we have supposedly, the roommate, the text messages don't come out until after they show us the gun that's recovered. We're told that the gun is recovered from those text messages to the roommate, who's also the lover. Now, throughout all of this, no one has ever asked the mental health of this Robinson. In other words, was he in and out of therapy? What kind of SSRIs was he on? Because I'm going to guarantee you, like 1,000%, that he's on some kind of drugs. But that's going to be in the background of every story. Now, from what I understand about this family, they are Christian conservative, and obviously this kid is the other way around. From what we understand about this person now coming in after these text messages were revealed by the roommate to local law enforcement and then the FBI, and supposedly 100% cooperative, right? You have basically local law enforcement saying that he was contacted by somebody mutually known via the family. It seems like they all went to the same church together, okay? And they wanted to be as delicate as possible. And basically the family had figured out how to get Tyler to this guy. 2 plainclothes are the ones that arrest him. Now he's in federal custody, et cetera, et cetera. There have been varying reports on how cooperative he's been and what he's been said. All right. Now let's look at the scene of the crime. 1 shot, 1 kill. Certainly would appear that whoever's on the roof is that killer, although there are a multitude of theories out there, that could be proven or disproven. I would say more than likely disproven when and if more videos come out. Remember, the stuff that's up close that Kirk's people himself were filming, they haven't been released at all yet. You have this one gentleman who has been at numerous events, including 9/11 and I believe the Boston bombing, who immediately after Kirk is shot says, I did it, and is thrown to the ground and detained. And, he's on the record as saying he did it so that the actual guy could get away. Whether or not that's some sort of conspiracy, it's certainly odd behavior. Since then, well, I mean, again, it's certainly something to look into. And then just yesterday, it was revealed that they found child pornography on his phone. And we're talking about the man that threw himself down. There are certainly a lot of aspects to this, especially the fact this guy was able to evade authorities at least 30 plus hours and, negotiated himself to coming in. I'm not saying that this kid is not the kid. Or the person. From what I understand, that shot can be made. A lot of people would point to, a pro would have gone lower or higher, blah, 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 blah. The fact is he made the shot. And he did. In a lot of these things, we see a multitude of shots. From there, I think there's a ton of speculation. And one of the reasons is that, guys like Netanyahu and others are kind of trying to hijack Kirk's identity at this point. Now, Kirk to me, far from perfect, had a lot of blind spots, was a Trump apologist on a lot of things. Like, for instance, yeah, I'm against what he did with Tehran and whatever, but it seems to have worked, so he just can't do it again, and da-da-da-da. But at the same time, he wasn't bloodthirsty, okay? There are a lot of people within his circles, whether it's Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, who came out and started discussing the things that Kirk was saying behind closed doors and starting to say in front of cameras via Israel and their foreign policy. Harrison Smith, prior to the assassination. And for those that don't know who Harrison Smith is, he is the morning show host on InfoWars. Although me and Harrison are certainly not close, we have met each other. We've been on each other's shows, etc. And I like Harrison. I respect him. He had put out a tweet, essentially, being at the Ron Paul 90th birthday, that somebody close to Kirk had said that Kirk was scared that Israel was going to kill him if he turned against them. You can read that. You can read it as what you want. I'm certainly not accusing Israel of anything. You know, I'm not accusing the deep state of anything on this one yet. At the same time, I've read those texts between the two. You know, there's some people saying that's not how people speak. I don't know these people. All I've seen is a bunch of pictures of the alleged killer, and then the alleged killer's, transitioning boyfriend into girlfriend in some kind of furry suit. That's it. So I would tell people to remain really reserved and try to have empathy for their fellow humans. Like, if somebody is laughing about this and you can't handle it, maybe just don't even comment, or maybe just say, hey, maybe it's time to take a look in the mirror. That was a father. That was a husband. You didn't have to like him, but he never raised his hands to anybody. He never, made it about anything, but what he believed in. And he was always willing to have that open dialogue. So again, imagine a world where Charlie Kirk's still here. Obviously, we're not all talking about him, but we might be talking about that Tucker Carlson documentary. We might be talking about Israel's role in past foreign and domestic policy in this country and future foreign and domestic policy in this country. Certainly, the floodgates are opening on that issue. John Kiriakou, the CIA whistleblower, who did criminal time for telling everybody, oh yeah, we have a torture program. Oh yeah, waterboarding, that's us. Got to spend some real great time with Kiriakou. I'm going to be having him on the program. But his entire speech originally was going to be about the celebrating or quote unquote dancing Israelis on 9/11. And instead, he just talked about the Israeli Mossad and Intel network in general, and how they treat their quote-unquote allies. And I would encourage people to watch it because, it is incredibly disturbing, Aaron.
I don't know that, that's not really a great promotion for me to want to watch it. Just saying. It's really disturbing. You should see this. There are rampant rumors that, Israel had offered Charlie Kirk money, specifically Netanyahu, to basically start saying, no, what Israel's doing in Gaza is good. And some of the other foreign policy issues. And the rumor is that Kirk said, no, I'm not going to do that. And that was potentially why someone said he was worried that Israel might come after him. Didn't know that the old guy in the crowd said, I did it. I didn't know that. But that makes perfect sense for him to do that so the other guy can get away, whoever he might have been, whether it's this Robinson kid or not. The Robinson kid, good shot, okay, if it's him. A son of law enforcement, so probably grew up around guns and stuff like that. So that's a possibility. But, it's just disappointing because Charlie Kirk was a debater. He wanted to talk. Let's talk. You don't agree? That's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's get this out. And I think, in my opinion, whoever the real bosses are, that scared the hell out of them. This kid's like lighting up all of our youth are just staring at their phones, right? This guy, he's getting them to conversate. He's getting them to look up. And whether they agree with him or not, they're paying more attention. They're thinking more about it. And suddenly, you have a populace of people who are interested. that want to talk, that want to have dialogue. And I don't think that's really, whoever's really in charge, I don't really think that's up their alley. I don't think they like that. And the fact that you had people say they hope the same thing happened to you, man, that's terrible. I'm sorry that you deal with that or have any of that kind of stuff online. That's not right.
I mean, it's the world we live in. To me, at least, you got to remember, I come from the days of the hardcore internet trolls prior to social media, where, these people, maybe they read about it every once in a while when they read about something like a 4chan or an 8chan, but basically before all these things, there were just multiple forums and everything was like 4chan or 8chan, because you would have these people that hated you so much that they would just crawl to every platform. And like, if they knew you were on a radio show or you were here or there, they would just spam the comments, bot style, say the worst things. I got live trolled on the Opie and Anthony show on Sirius XM back in the day, where, you had Jim Norton and company talking about how they wanted my mother raped with a HIV or AIDS infested porn star penis. So, you roll with the punches, my man. You take.
Man, that's crazy.
you take what you can. I've always said it like this. Right now, we're now kind of at this moment where 9/11 is almost culturally accepted that we've been lied to on a mass scale. I hear Building 7 pop up all the time in stand-up comic routines, especially in that world. More and more people just go, oh yeah, we've been lied to. So we have to turn that into something for the 25th anniversary. I still have some hope, knowing that Tucker is going to be putting out that documentary. I do hope that it can get some kind of traction. But certainly Kirk's murder is going nowhere. And it's going nowhere kind of forever because of the grotesque fashion, the cultural significance at which it happened, etc. The time in our country. But in the next year, it's really not going anywhere, Aaron. Let's hope. Let me say this. Let's hope they do have the right guy. Let's hope they present a real and compelling case to that. There's always going to be people that no matter how much evidence you show them, they're not going to agree with the official version or even somebody else's alternate version. I get that. That's part of the human condition. But if they can present a real case and this is really the person, what really needs to happen over the next year is we need an open prosecution of this person. And we need to go into all aspects of this person, because if it is this person, I got news for everybody. Crazy exists. All right. And you can ask the why and, the inflame this, or maybe he shouldn't have gotten that. If we're going to talk about quote unquote gun rights, then we start talking about the medications people are on. Because I'm going to say it again and again and again. There is, I would be shocked if this 29-year-old, okay, who decided to do this, never met Charlie Kirk in his life. Charlie Kirk's never done anything personally to him, gets up there and kills this guy that he hasn't been in and out of some type of therapy on, all sorts of cocktails of terrible. It's almost a guarantee. And the fact that that's not even in the discussion, not only not in the wider discussion in the mainstream media, but certainly not even in the alternative media at this point, is also disturbing, because it's something that needs to be focused on.
Well, I couldn't agree more, but Big Pharma doesn't like that. Jason Bermas. We are deep in the weeds with Jason Bermas, brought to you by River City's Reader. Let's talk, Virginia Tech and Northern Illinois shooters were both on the same medication, both personally decided to stop taking it, and then both went on mass shootings within 2 weeks of that.
That's another thing. Hold on. That a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to come off these things. All right. And I could name Jared Loeffner. When you read the fine print on the vast majority of them, all right, there is some article in there talking about their mental health state, because you're not a mentally healthy person if you decide to just take somebody else's life or shoot into a group of people and take their lives. All right, that's the first hint. How do we deal with that? How do we handle with that in our society. We drug these people up and they disassociate. Now all of a sudden they're chemically dependent on these things. Their endorphins, their hormones, their whole biology is now messed up. And we're celebrating that as if, hey, that's going to solve the issue. Then they come off it and they literally have, it's in every single damn one of the commercials. They have suicidal or homicidal thoughts and tendencies. Why would you ever give a loved one medication that would give them suicidal thoughts and tendencies?
Right.
You want to roll the dice? I mean, my God.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's crazy, and it's so regular. It's just the disclaimer at the end. Taking this medication could cause, blah, 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 and then you got to record it and then slow it down just to even know what they said. But yeah, it's really common, and they just keep wanting to pump everybody full of these things, and I don't know. It's pretty wild. You've touched a nerve for me, especially because I do know I know those two guys were on the same drugs. I know they stopped taking them. These are prescription drugs. Stopped taking them, and then both went on mass shootings. I mean, that's let's take a look at that. But no one ever talks about that, Jason Bermas. Side note, real quick, before we get too far away from what we were talking about, and this is a weird question to ask, and not one I anticipated asking today. This was not on my bingo card. How many times have you had people threaten your life?
Yeah, well, it depends on, if you.
I mean, serious or not serious or whatever. Online, seriously, just ballpark. How many times do you think you've had people threaten your life?
Incredibly, I would hope zero. Online,
Right.
hundreds of times. I mean, that's not even
Hundreds.
of times. Oh my God, yes. Oh, I had one individual that was a little bit more serious than others, and I forget, man. Oh no, now I do remember. Troy from Virginia, who basically was kind of obsessed with InfoWars, Alex Jones, and myself at the time because I was the only other thing on InfoWars other than Alex Jones. Troy from West Virginia. And you can he did some weird, documentary trying to expose Alex Jones. He would always call into the show. I always try to be civil to him. But he was like a rich kid that, as a grown-up, his dad had owned car dealerships or whatever, had a lot of time on his hands. And eventually he ended up being arrested because at a youth Pee-wee Pop Warner football game, he grabbed somebody else's kid by the ankles and slammed him on the head or something. Definitely.
Sounds like a real trooper.
I mean, sometimes you're dealing with people that are certainly, unfortunately, mentally unstable. I'm going to say it. Crazy exists. Situational awareness is a real thing. And one of the other things that's so sad about Charlie is that he did have the situational awareness where he had a ton of security, right? I mean, but that crowd of 3,000 people, and that's another, in front of all of those people in person, it just...
His wife and daughter were there.
All of it just makes me so physically ill to think about. But there was one other point that I didn't want to get too far away from when we were talking about, those SSRIs, these type of drugs, and you talked about mass shootings. Hey, man, forget about just the mass shootings. Once, every week, maybe 2 weeks max, I hear about what? A wife that kills her kids, and then her husband, or a husband that kills his wife and his kids. Almost every single time, unless there's some kind of a affair going on, which does happen with total psychopath/sociopath men mostly. Usually doesn't happen with women. It's the same story. Those people are on those type of drugs. Well, she was depressed. She was taking this for how many years? Think about that. How many families have been utterly and literally murdered on behalf of those drugs that we don't even talk about either? Forget about just the mass shootings, events like this one. That's got to start being the conversation. And I'm glad that RFK Jr. is starting to make it the conversation. And of course, the media is, rabidly attacking him for it. But once again, he's kind of the shining light in the administration, because I don't know if you've caught it yet, Aaron, but Kash Patel is not doing so hot up there being asked about the Epstein stuff.
Yeah. No, I saw it. He was getting, they get him pretty rattled on those Senate panel committees. It's like junior high kids fighting over the last brownie. It's crazy. It's so kind of sick almost, because this is how the people that run our country act. And I'm like, how is this how you act? This is crazy. This is on TV, and you're acting like this? Like, it's wild. It's hard to explain. Anytime I see those clips from the Senate panel or House committee panel or whatever, it's mind-boggling how crazy these people act, these elected officials.
Well, I would say this. You need these things because you have to kind of shine a public spotlight on the behavior or the response. For instance, Thomas Massey was asking direct questions, putting things into the record, especially in regards to Epstein being Central Intelligence Agency or intelligence, put the Acosta stuff in the record, put the fact that all these victims do exist. And, by the way, he said that 20 individuals had been specifically named as to being trafficked via Jeffrey Epstein. Let me repeat that, 20. And one of them, I'm just going to say, caught my ear, because you know who's around Epstein. I'm sure that if I went through the list of the professions of these people, I could, play the game and name a bunch of them. But one certainly that still has a career is, they said, a magician. Well, David Blaine, is with Epstein all the time. He's in the Black Book. He's in the address stuff. He's on the plane. He's still got a career. And David Blaine, aside from being buddies with Epstein, was also buddies with a guy named Bryan Singer. And Bryan Singer is a very talented Hollywood director. Kind of breaks my heart that, because I like a lot of David Blaine stuff too. You can't cloud yourself with what they do with the people that they are. Bryan Singer, behind The Usual Suspects, with, that great actor, Kevin Spacey. Great movie. Great people. And if you want to know about Bryan Singer and you can't understand why he's not in prison, you should watch An Open Secret, where, it's hard for me to grasp how these people have eluded justice to anything that they've done. So, Massey really took it to Patel. Patel wears it on his face the entire time. And even at the very end, when he's done talking about Epstein, he also asks about the Vegas shooting. That's whatever to me, not because that's not a huge issue, but it's certainly not in the moment. He asks about the progress on the January 6th or January 5th rather pipe bomber. And Patel alludes to that investigation is progressing. But I wonder how much longer, because how many years have we had to look into this matter? I think it's very, very clear that the pipe bomber was some kind of a plan B for January 6th, and that it was 100% government sponsored, or the person would have been apprehended by now. In fact, they wouldn't have been allowed to plant pipe bombs all over D.C., the most surveilled city in the world.
That's a good point.
I mean, it's an insane point.
Like a Guy Fawkes thing, huh? Like the pipe bomber guy kind of had like a Guy Fawkes thing going on?
There is no Guy Fawkes thing. Like, immediately, first of all, if you look as to how these things were found and how they were treated when they were found, that's extremely suspicious. FBI whistleblower Stephen Friend, somebody I've had on my broadcast, specifically showed documentation that the pipe bombs were essentially identical to training material that had been used by the Department of Homeland Security. Some of the videos were clearly edited that were released to the public. There's never any, clear picture of this person's face, although they track him throughout. They've known who this person was since January 5th. There's so many other anomalies there. And again, I think they're there in case whatever, they can't get the spectacle that they want, or they need to ramp up the violence in some manner. I wonder as to how operational any of these things were in retrospect. So there's a lot of questions surrounding that. But the fact that that wasn't even part of the conversation when they were doing their whole January 6th committee should have let everybody know that that was a huge red flag on both ends, Aaron.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a quote from some CIA director that said that if people don't know what's true or lies, basically what's real or not real, then they're doing their job. That's what their goal was. And, it feels more and more like that. We are deep in the weeds with Jason Bermas, brought to you by River Cities Reader. We're starting to run out of time here. I got something I wanted to bring up to you that you brought up and have brought up several times, and that's the AI data centers. So we've talked a lot about how they use an insane amount of water. We have more and more drought happening, and specifically they need fresh water. And I know a lot more about this now, Jason, because there was an awesome story. Now, you brought this up. You brought it up almost every week a little bit for the last couple of months, right? There was a great story in the Quad City Times on Monday, I believe from the Associated Press. Let me check that. And it's all about it. It's all about how the AI data centers are being, they're passing all these tax exemptions. All these states around the Great Lakes region, including Illinois, are trying to get in on this and get these data centers. But then they start talking about how the data centers are not required to report their water consumption, and that they're going to be using these huge amounts of fresh water that supply water to so many people, and they don't even have to report what they're using. I mean, they basically like, here, do whatever you want. We want you in our state. And I don't know that we do. Like, I don't want any of this. This does not look good to me. I would highly recommend, if you can, take a look at that story from Monday's paper. Or if not, I could probably figure out how to send it to you or something. I got like the online edition for the Quad City Times. But I found it very interesting that you've been talking about this, but I don't hear anything about it really in the media. Nobody wants to. It's sort of like, where we're talking about, like, a lot of these shooters are people that are on prescription drugs and then get off of them. But, Big Pharma's going to make sure nobody's talking about that, right? They got enough fingers into the media. They're not going to let them just, run them under the table. But this story is pretty good. And it's Adriana Perez from the Chicago Tribune is actually who wrote the story. And I don't know. I hope it opens more people's eyes. You're already talking about this, but now it actually hits a mainstream media network. I'd love to see at least some discussion about this instead of them just letting them do this. And then who knows what, when all the AI robots have the water, what are we going to do then?
Well, let's just think about what you said. These people are going to be totally and completely unaccountable as to their usage. We are in a time where more and more automation is coming in. So it's not like these things are going to create some kind of a great economy, especially for the masses. Our bills will go up for our own enslavement. What do you think these AI data centers really are? They're the ultimate track, trace database, then create out of that any type of tailored artificial intelligence, whether that be a chatbot via a GPT or the type of image and video production you're seeing more and more integrated into everything. Google itself has a new app that is basically not just a search on the internet, but a search via everything on your computer. So that's your file systems and much, much more. That is going to become more of the norm. Things like Copilot, which are already pre-installed on your Windows, are going to have more and more AI features that are hooked into these data centers. And in my mind, they are ultimately anti-human. I want more people to... The evidence, it feels that way because it is that way, Aaron. You know what
I mean?
Yes.
Like it feels like this doesn't seem like it's good for us.
It's not.
You know what I mean? Like,
we're signing our own death warrants, everybody, and I hate to be dramatic about that, but when you prioritize a thing that is not conscious and not human over humanity, what do you think happens, especially with something that is a life force of the species and the planet itself, the whole biome? And now we're going to be feeding it into the machine, and that's just the water aspect of it. Right now, I've said it, with traditional electricity, your electricity bills are going to go up. Okay, your water bills are going to go up. Your water consumption is going to be less. They're going to harp more on your carbon footprint. Okay, you'd think that they would pull it back. No, this is going to allow them to do it more. And a lot of people are going to buy into that. We're the ones killing the environment while they do this. And then they're going to want to put mini nuclear centers at most of these places. It will be a slow expansion for some, but out of the gates, many will kick it right off as well. So we're in a very transitional time period in technology, in power consumption, and unfortunately, the standard of living of this country and really the globe. If we allow these things to continue, most people need to wake up to it. And I'm hoping, Chicago Tribune, this has got to be an issue everywhere. I'm glad the Quad City Times reprinted that, because I know I look kind of dumb, and I don't sound the most articulate. I get it. I got a very Jersey Shore vibe, but we're not going to be talking about the Loch Ness Monster with Rummy today. We actually talk about issues that matter to everybody, because here's the other thing. One of the points for censorship on that space that I was on after the Kirk murder is you had this guy going, people are saying the craziest thing. Wasn't things better after World War II when we were all kind of one nation? I go, let's stop. Ignorance is not bliss. Okay, everybody? Information truly is power. So you can't remain ignorant on this. You have to know that this is the game. And that, again, that's one of the things long term I think Kirk was dead on about, is he realized there is also this transhumanist movement. You mentioned kind of like these meetings with Kirk, et cetera. We know one of the meetings actually happened. Bill Ackman has, been called out and had to respond. And it wasn't just with Charlie Kirk, which with a bunch of different influencers on money and his donations. And Ackman, again, has actually posted some, I think, text messages between him and Kirk back and forth. But Tim Pool was at that meeting as well. So, look, we're in a time where I think that you need to take a step back on everything, especially the stuff that's being blared at you from all angles, whether it's the mainstream, the alternative, your social media feed. Take a step back. Don't just read the headline. It's so hard for people to do this, but do your own research and kind of believe in your gut when you cross-reference information. You might even want to ask somebody else, have a conversation with somebody that might have an opposing view and see if they have anything to offer. And, not feel the urge to physically throttle that person or shoot them in the neck. Yeah.
Wow. Good stuff, Jason Bermas. Good stuff. I got a quick comment online here. Somebody emailed me a comment I made earlier in the show. I was talking about how in the media they never refer to the middle class anymore. It's working class. And that's actually a communist term because they don't recognize the middle class. And that gives a feel of maybe how far some of the folks in our media are leaning in a direction. And it's kind of weird. That's kind of freaky, but no one says middle class anymore. In the media.
I don't know how much of a middle class we got going. Listen, we are in a very good area here in the Quad Cities as compared to a lot of places in the country. I think a lot of that, honestly, has to do with the lower wages in the state of Iowa with, I think it's like $7.25 or $7.50 is the nation at, the nation's lowest minimum wage. I think in New York, I think in New York it's like $16.50 at this point. And I'm going to tell people, again, physically and population-wise, there are a lot of places in upstate New York that are so much more similar to here in Iowa. But then think about that cost of living. My brother right now, who is in an extremely rural area, and I think that his mortgage, I think his mortgage payment, believe this or not, folks, is less than his energy bill every month now. Okay, his mortgage payment. Like I think his energy bill, and this isn't like a water included type thing, it's like $400+ a month. That's crazy for here. I'm rocking a 5.
His mortgage is less than that.
Well, yeah, no. Well, he's that rural. Put a lot down on it.
He's that rural.
He's that rural.
I've talked for a long time that I thought power bills, they would eventually someone would stop and realize that you can air condition a 2,000 square foot house for as much money as a 6-pack of beer costs for a day. You know, and eventually they were going to realize, like, oh, we can charge them more for power, and they're gonna. And now, you know, the AI stuff is, I don't know, but kind of a wild one today, Jason Bermas.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Good information.
Yeah, lots of stuff, lots of raw emotions. But the bottom line is, what we really didn't get into was left or right issues. We weren't talking these damn conservatives, these damn liberals. Everything comes from a human perspective, in my opinion, and that's what we need to focus on more. Because you know, a lot of people are going to try to divide us, especially with the Kirk issue. It's not about left or right. It's always about right and wrong, especially in this. And I really want people to be reserved until we see all the facts that come out, you know, what they've got on this person. We don't let them hijack this guy's identity, again, to oppress a population even further from their speech, from their right to arm themselves. And we just got to take caution with everything we say and do out there. Folks, that is going to do it. You know the drill. These issues are not about left or right. They are always about right and wrong. I absolutely love you guys, and I will see you all on the flip side.